Ramana Maharshi's words are deep and direct. My comments are intended to bring his deep words into your experience. This week is talk number 126. Dr. Syed again asks, should anyone desirous of spiritual progress take to action or renunciation? Maharshi replied, do you go out of the self? What is meant by giving up? An American engineer asked about satsang, and Maharshi said, Sat is within us. Another disciple asked, in the book, Who Am I? You have said the heart is the seat of the mind. Is it so? Maharshi replied, the mind is Atman. The disciple asked, is it Atman itself or its projection? Maharshi says, the same. A devotee asks, the Westerners look on the mind as the highest principle, whereas the Easterners think the contrary. Why? And Maharshi replied, where psychology ends, their philosophy begins. This is the experience. The mind is born, we see it. Even without the mind, we exist. There's everyone's experience to prove it. The devotee says Western philosophy admits the higher self as influencing the mind. This talk is pretty wide-ranging, from practice to existence and then the mind. The dialogues, though, have one common thread, the need to look within yourself for truth. In the first dialogue, Dr. Syed asks Ramana about the path to spiritual progress to find the self, specifically whether one should follow the path of action or renunciation. Ramana Maharshi responds by questioning whether we ever truly go outside of our own self. And he asks what it means to give up something. You can only give up something that is temporary to start with. What is permanent, what is always there, can never be given up. His point is that the self is always present, and that the idea of giving up or pursuing something external is based on a misconception, a misidentification of your real identity. Then an American engineer asked Ramana about satsang, which refers to the association or companies of sages or enlightened individuals. Ramana Maharshi's response is that the essence of sat, which is truth or reality, is within ourselves. That the true association with sages is recognizing the truth within ourselves rather than seeking it externally. Once again, Ramana tells us to look within ourselves, not to the world or other people. We are the truth itself, so why look somewhere else for the truth. Ramana consistently tells us to look within ourselves. The dialogue continues with a question about the heart being the seat of the mind, as mentioned in Ramana's book, Who Am I? Ramana confirms that the mind is essentially the same as the Atman, the individual sense of self. It is the mind that sees itself as an individual. It is this misconception that is resolved by self-inquiry. At its base, without the covering of the mind, the Atman is the true self and identical with Brahman, the absolute self. The questioner asks whether the mind is the Atman itself or a projection of it. Ramana Maharshi's response is that they are one and the same, implying that the mind is a manifestation or expression of the Atman as the mind is projected into an apparent world. Without the Atman, there is no mind. Atman does not need any mind for its existence. Atman with the mind is the sense of being an individual. Atman with no mind is the absolute Brahman. These videos help bring Ramana Maharshi's teachings into your direct experience. Subscribe now to help you deepen your understanding and practice to know the self. Just click the subscribe button.